how's it going?
Hey, friend, it's going. How's it going with you?
It's good. It's been a good day. How about you?
Good.
Yeah.
My um, pit for the day is I have just felt really unsettled, like I don't have a
Mhm.
good grasp of my time management. And I think this is just like a super busy season for
Yeah.
us and our family. And then this is the quarter before our busy season at work. And
Hmm.
so, like, I feel like there's a lot leading up. There's a lot of Maternal Mental Health Month is May, Mother's Day is in May, and we're a mom female organization. And so I just feel like I have a lot on my plate and it's like difficult to prioritize in this moment. And so that's kind of my pit is just this like unsettled feeling. So I'm just like riding the wave
Yeah.
instead of directing the wave.
I feel like that happens sometimes. I felt a
But
little
just
unsettled.
but despite being busy, my peaches is my bosses and I joke because they both joined the organization through like a much larger organization, and
Yeah.
so there's there's a lot more like it's less laid back, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I had talked about when I first came in that I'm the type employee that I need feedback.
Mm.
And I said, I need both constructive criticism and ass pats. And they were both like, what? I said, ass pat.
Is
Like,
this like an HR violation that you're asking
exactly,
for?
exactly. And I was just like, no, this is just a thing
Yeah, where
that
you're
we
like,
need.
go
And that is
team.
like, I don't need like a physical pat on my ass, but I need you to tell me that I'm doing a good job
Yeah.
in the moment of like, not like, here's my product. And they say, good job. I
Right.
need it
Right.
like just more organically.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got some ass pats today at work, despite feeling very unsettled in my normal life. So I like those ass pats.
I'm gonna start calling them that from now on.
It's seriously the best,
It is. I like that visual.
right?
So I'm
So
gonna
then my boss today called it an ass tap, and I was like, yikes.
ooh,
That like we really need to nail down the ass pats because ass
S
tap
taps. This
sounds
has
like
strayed into
you
like
want to tap my ass, and
yeah,
that
that
is
has strayed into
definitely
some
an
straight up
HR violation.
innuendo.
So we had a good laugh about if you're going to try to use the language, you need to be very specific that they are pats and not taps.
Yes, that seems like a very distinct difference.
Hmm.
Well, I'm gonna do my peaches and then my pits because my peaches will make my pits make more sense.
Okay.
Um, so my peaches today is that it was like absolutely beautiful out this afternoon.
Yes.
And so when I got done with work for the day in between like work and picking up the kids, like I sat outside on the front porch in the 72-degree weather with the sunshine on my face and I meditated. And then I went for a bike ride by myself. And it
That
was just
sounds lovely.
fantastic. Yes. Normally, like I have to ride at like snail speed with Nora on her
Hmm.
bike. And so I go like a third of the distance that everyone else
Right.
in my family goes. And I could like walk it faster than I could ride it. I
Hmm.
maybe like pedal twice. Um, so I was like, well, I have the option of like doing that or going to the gym. And so I took the bike ride instead. And it was just like glorious to have like the fresh spring air and the
Right.
sunshine, like and the wind, just like it was so revitalizing.
Yes.
So that was my peaches. And like we grilled out for dinner. It was so great. But then my pits is, we grilled and then we went inside because it's kind of windy,
Hmm.
a cool wind, and we wanted to eat warm food. And so I was like super excited to go back out after dinner. But in like the 45 minutes it took us to like eat and clean up, it got really freaking cold.
I
And the
know.
wind was like, so like the girls and I had to have baseball. And so they left and I got done like tidying up and cleaning up the kitchen. And I'm like, okay, girls, like, let's go outside. And we all walked out and we were like, we looked at each other and we are like, this is cold now.
Yeah.
So the pits was that it cooled down like real quick.
Yeah, like so fast. Like we
Yeah.
went to volleyball practice tonight, like very comfortable in a t-shirt and
Oh yeah.
capri leggings.
Yeah.
And we
Sandals.
came out of volleyball and I was like, I need my coat. I don't
Yes.
like this.
Yes. My follow-up pit to that would be I currently have every season of things in my car, like
Oh,
every season of coat for
oh,
every
yeah.
person and like every season of like
Two.
clothing and toys and thing like it's all just in there. And so you have to like wade through about a foot of seasonal items to get to your
Yeah.
seat.
I really do hate that about us living in a place with four seasons is that like
Mhm.
there's these transition periods in like April and October
Yeah.
that like literally everything is out because we don't know if it's going to be 80 degrees or 40 degrees.
Yes, 100%. 100%. It is my least favorite time of organizational
Yeah.
chaos.
Yeah. So what are
So,
we talking about today?
Spitfires. Do you
Oh
wanna
yeah.
do you wanna tell your Spitfire story? And then I also have one because it's super timely and relevant.
Okay, perfect. So my Spitfire story um, is there's actually like actual spit involved. Not only are our children very feisty. When they were in toddlers, they always said goodbye to each other, but instead of like just like little like cute little hugs or side hugs, they would full open mouth kiss one another. And this was still when like Caitlin and I were like forming our relationship.
Yes, there
And
wasn't
you
like a
and
level of trust yet.
yeah, so like you and I were just getting to know each other, and there was one time I specifically remember us both being there because like both of us had seen it at
Yeah,
this
yeah.
point, but we were both there, and it was just the snotty, slobbery
Mhm.
open mouth
It
kiss.
was
You and I
yeah.
just kind of looked at each other and we're, I think that this just owns us, and we just both have to, yeah, like that's their love, and
That
we
is
don't
it.
stifle their
I
love.
do think we tried reminding them
We
because
did.
we are a little bit germophobic, to be
Yeah.
like, we don't open mouth kiss our
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah. Kiss on the
It
cheek,
yeah,
but I don't know if they really complied that
I doubt
frequently.
it. I doubt it. There was a lot. Yeah, there was a lot. I know they pretty much like they shared everything, including their germs back then. So,
Yes. Yeah.
oh, I
So
forgot
what's
about
your
those open
story?
mouth kisses. Okay, so my story is timely and relevant because of my like tangent pit about my car being like a mess with every season into it. But last night when I took the girls to dance, Nora was telling Caroline about her soccer game for the weekend, which she is loving soccer. Color
I
me
love that
shocked
for her. Yeah.
because I do not understand.
Right.
It is a legitimate surprise to me. So on Saturday, as you know, Eric had to work.
Mm-hmm.
So um football and soccer, so Norris soccer, Hudson's flag football games started at an ungodly early hour, 8:30 in the morning for football and 9 for soccer. And like so I had to pay a babysitter to take Nora to the soccer game because it was Hudson's first football game. And so I'm like already out money for the day. Like the fact that I have to pay a babysitter to be at
Right.
my house at 8 a.m. on a Saturday
Yeah.
is like usually, like a few extra bucks tacked on. And then then it also happened to be like basically winter's last hurrah. And it was like freezing cold. And so then I
Mm-hmm.
had to pay her, I felt like even more to be like, I'm sorry, this is the worst babysitting gig ever. Please don't stop answering my phone calls. So anyway, No,
Insurance payments.
it is. I'm sure if Eric knew how much I paid her for like the hour and a half, he would be like, "What the fuck are you paying her for?" But I feel like when you legitimately when you ask your babysitters to do shit babysitting gigs, I feel like you do kind of have to pay them more money because otherwise they remember and they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, is it worth it?" And one day
Right.
it's not gonna be.
Right. Right.
So, I try to pay well. Anyway, Nora was very excited because she got to ride in Karina's car to soccer. So now that she's in a
Okay.
booster, she has like so much more flexibility. She thinks she's the shit when she gets to like move over to someone else's car. So she's telling Caroline on the way to dance yesterday about how fun soccer is. She was like, and I got to ride in Karina's car. And she goes, Mom, guess what? And I was like, what? And she goes, you have to ride in Karina's car sometime. It is so cool. It's like ours, it's an SUV. She's like, it's like our car, but so clean. And I was like, hmm. And she goes, there's nothing in her back seats. It's so clean. It looks clean. It smells clean. And she's like, it's so cool. I wish our car was like that.
Uh-huh. Same
And I
girl.
go, yeah, yeah, same girl, same. And I go, yeah, that's because Karina is in college and doesn't have kids who eat snacks and leave parts of their snacks stuck in between the seats or throw their trash on the floor or bring every single toy and or piece of clothing imaginable on every single car ride and then never take any of that stuff
Right.
out. I
Right.
was like, that's why Karina's car is clean because
It's
she's like,
because
yeah,
she's
she's
one
20
human.
something. Yeah, she's one human who
We have
like
several more.
seems yeah, seems very tidy in general. I don't know. I've never seen her like personal space. And so then Caroline goes, yeah, actually, your car really could use a car wash.
Oh, Caroline Lou.
Because
She's
I mean, she
so
like said it.
savage.
She did comment when she was getting in. She's like, because my car is like pretty dusty and dirty. And she goes like, wow, you could really use a car wash. So then she just
Oh,
like tacked on to Nora's like,
oh my gosh. Out of
and I was
control.
like, you're gonna walk home, ladies. Thanks for your
Right.
feedback.
Right. Ugh, they're so crazy.
So they were fantastic. Anyway, hopefully our husbands had better things to say or do this week.
Yeah, right.
They for sure did not open mouth kiss each other. So,
No, they for sure. For sure.
what's your partner praise?
Um, so Jesse's uncle passed back in
Mhm.
February, and it's been um, just a lot for his family. He has a pretty small family, and there's a family farm involved, and so like it just like logistically is very complicated. Um, but I have just been so like overwhelmed by the amount of like love and support he's
Mm.
offered both from like a physical support, like moving furniture out of the house, um, and offering to help with planting this season and stuff like that. But then also like this like emotional support that he's able to provide to his mom who lost her brother and to his grandparents who lost their firstborn son. Um, and so it's just been like one of those like, you get like the welly heart where you're
Mhm.
like, oh, he's a
Yeah.
he is big and capable of all these feelings, and
Yeah.
so like his love for his family has just really made me like really love and appreciate him more in those
Yeah.
moments. It was just amplified. So
Aw, that's really sweet. And
I
so now
know
now mine is gonna seem like I'll lighten it up.
you can lighten it up. Yeah.
Um, so my partner prays, and I really sincerely hope that my husband listens to this and laughs. Every March in I'm not gonna say that this is a military thing because quite honestly, it could potentially just be made up by my husband. Um, but I have seen a couple of other people do it, and he calls it Mustache March. So similar to No Shave November, they have like
Hmm.
Mustache March, where because like obviously in the military you can't have like full facial hair. The
Right.
only like thing that is allowed is a mustache. And like there's only like so far out it can
Right, right,
go and
right.
so far down. Like there's all these like
There's
rules
lots of
and
rules.
stipulations. Yes. And I am just not a fan of the mustache at all. Like it's not that I don't like my husband with facial hair. I actually don't mind it when he has like kind of a well manicured like goatee or like some general like scruff. But I'm very like particular about the mustache because, and I realize this is unfair because it is the only facial hair he's allowed to have on a regular and consistent basis. So anyway, I grew up, my dad has always had a mustache, and I love my dad, and the mustache fits my dad and it works. But like I have grown up with it. And so it just mustaches have a very distinct feel to them. And so like anytime my dad would like give me a kiss on the cheek or something like to
Yeah.
say goodbye, just to be super clear, I like don't kiss my dad on the mouth. But like when he would give me a kiss goodbye, like there's that, like you feel the mustache too. And it's just
Right.
literally like have felt it my whole life. That's like, that is a feeling or a sensation that I like
Yeah.
associate with my dad. Anyway, my point is, I'm not a fan of the mustache on my husband because nobody wants to be reminded of their dad when they go to kiss their husband, especially not when he has his bedroom eyes on. Like, this
Oh
is
my
like a giant
gosh.
point of contention. Eric maintains that, like, this is the most ludicrous reasoning on the face of the planet to not allow or encourage a mustache. And so he gets very discouraged by my lack of support. Like
That
he
is
has en-
seriously so funny.
he has enlisted other people to like try to get me on board. Like I went into our chiropractor one day and he was like, "Oh my gosh, Caitlin, like Eric brought something totally new to the office." And it was like so great. And I cut him off and I'm like, "Are you talking about the mustache? Because it's not." He
Because it's not
goes,
that great.
"Yeah." He's like, "Yes." He told me to try to help you help sell it to you. And I was like, "Well, it's not
Oh
working."
my gosh.
So anyway, mustache March. He has been teasing me that like he was going to keep it through like all of this weekend or this past weekend, even though it was the first weekend in April, so he could have it for drill. And then he was like, "Actually, I'm just going to keep it because he's kind of gearing up like in about like in a couple of weeks, he'll like go on a trip and then like it kind of starts his like busy travel season and he'll be gone like a pretty significant amount of time over the next like 2.5 months." And he's like, "I'm just gonna keep it through my May trips." And I was like, "Oh my God." And I'm like trying not to show my disappointment,
Mm-hmm.
but I was just like, whatever, okay. I was like, I mean, I said like, I
That
think
is
I
a
even was like, "So you just don't want to have sex?" Like, is that what is happening here? Because that seems like
because that's
new.
what I'm hearing.
That's what I mean. Yes, exactly. That's what I hear when you say I'm going to keep my mustache for 2 more months. But anyway, he like kind of relentlessly teases me about it. And like, I didn't want to be a jerk and be like, seriously, shave it off. I don't like it. But anyway, my praise is that he in fact did shave it off on Sunday. I didn't see him Sunday
Oh,
morning. And like we had some brief, so brief that like I didn't even really like see him
right,
more than
right.
like to like actually comprehend. But he showed up Sunday night a little bit late to our Bible study with Hudson after baseball practice. And I was like, he looks a lot younger. What is going on? And then it registered in the middle of like the conversation with our small group. I looked at him, I was like, "Oh my God, you shaved it off." And so I just appreciate that he kept it to March and did
Yeah,
not subject me to 2 additional months
of kissing your dad.
of mustache. Oh, God, see, it sounds so
It
bad.
does sound really bad.
I don't know. We can take a poll or something. Maybe that is a ridiculous, but it's so tactile. And
Right,
like
right,
for 36 years, that
right,
has been like the feeling I associate with my dad giving like saying goodbye to me when I leave to
right,
my parents'
right.
house is
Because yeah, I mean,
the little
Jesse's
like
for reference, has a full beard
Yes, full
mustache. Like
beard.
he's like lumberjack style. Um, and my dad had a mustache off and on when I was growing up because my dad is also military.
Mhm.
Um, but I guess I'd never had that like underlying like feeling. And so when Jesse decided to just like lumberjack it, I was fine with it.
To be clear, if it's, like, more than the mustache, so, like, if he's off for, like, a couple of weeks or
Right.
something, or,
But when
like,
it's just the mustache.
when it's just the mustache, that's when it's an issue. When it goes beyond the mustache into more, totally fine.
Oh my
Totally
God.
fine.
Huh.
So, anyway, that's my partner praise.
I like it. Way to be, Eric. Good looking out for your wife and yourself, really.
Right,
Spade is spade.
appreciate that. Anyway, today we wanted to dive into this topic of what young boys and girls learn when their moms bear the mental load. So I think this is something that as a mom, and like as the person who feels like they like carry a majority of the mental load, I think about all the time. And I regularly kind of question what is my son picking up? What are my daughters picking up? Is it different? Is it nature? Is it nurture? Like,
Mhm.
and I'm sure it's a blend of both. But I just really worry that in particular, they are each sort of learning like that very gendered bias in terms
Yeah.
of like, this is what my mom takes care of and this is what my dad takes care of, and I can clearly see that. And like, I was kind of reading this article, and it's a scenario that I think we're all familiar with. And so the writer kind of starts explaining that, she's got this popular squabble in her house. And again, I think we can all identify with, she's like, my spouse who's very involved, and he is participatory, but he's still like the guy who will make a plan to go to the playground with the kids and then like doesn't remember to pack the sunscreen or the snacks or the water bottles. And so, but like conversely, when she makes that plan, she was like, of course, like I have planned for every potential scenario. I've
Yeah.
thought through
Right.
these things. And she was like, this anecdote isn't meant to shame him. It's really meant to illuminate the distinction between like what we millennial women and like most of our generation and generations of women before us were raised. We were taught to take on the invisible labor, and men just simply were not. Like,
Right.
going to the park is like literally getting in the car and going to the park, and like maybe we grab a water bottle.
Right.
That's, you know. And so I feel like that is something that we can all identify with, right? This idea
Absolutely.
that like I've thought through every scenario and planned for it so that we can, and we talked about this a lot kind of in the first episode, like, so we can
Hmm.
maximize and make sure that we can like have the tools at our disposal to manage everyone's emotional, like regulate everyone's emotions going
Right.
into that scenario.
And
Because
physical needs.
correct, correct. Nobody wants to be caught with their pants down and be like, well, now I don't have what I need to get us
Yeah.
through this
Right.
particular excursion. And then we're all, you know, stuck here being
At the
miserable.
frick. Yeah.
And so this to me is like particularly interesting, and I'm curious like how you feel about it at your house, especially because like our roles are reversed where your
Right.
daughters are the oldest and your son is the youngest, and my son's the oldest and the daughters are younger. um I feel like a lot of times, like I will hear more often than not, my son will be like, well, why do I have to, and like a good example is our dishwasher, right? Like I am somebody, like if the dishwasher is dirty and I've used a dish, I will just put it straight in the dishwasher. To me, I
Right.
don't see the point of like setting it in the sink and waiting until the sink is full. So I have to stare at it all day long and like think about the mess when I could just like put it
Put
in the
it in
dishwasher.
the
To me, it's
dishwasher.
like literally maybe an extra second to open the dishwasher.
Hmm.
And Eric is like the opposite, right? He's like, well, I'm just going to put all my dishes in the sink. And then at the end of the night, Hudson's going to load them all into the dishwasher for me. And we're good. And like Hudson will say, like, well, why do I have to do this when I don't see dad do this? And he doesn't say, he's only said it like once or twice, but
Hmm.
that's sort of like when it hit me. And when we were thinking about for this, like for the podcast, like what
Yeah.
do we want to talk about? That's why this was like such a big topic for me, because I was like, I genuinely like wonder how much of it is stuff that like they're just picking up on contextually from like what they're observing.
Right. Just like living in the household.
Mhm.
Because, yeah, I would agree that that's like a really, really great example of, we have the ones that I can think of, we have are less like tangible where it's like a direct thing. So mostly we see it like well, or like trash on the end table or tissues on the end
Mm.
table.
Oh yeah.
That's one at our house,
100.
is that trash gets set there after
Yeah.
they've eaten a snack or had a piece
Mhm.
of candy.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then when I get after them to pick it up, Charlotte, our oldest, has said, well, dad doesn't pick up his trash. And
Mhm.
so, like, and it's not like they're intentionally leaving a mess.
Right,
But
right. Yeah.
maybe, I mean, maybe, do we need to start modeling that we're also telling our spouses to pick up their trash or put their dishes away? But like, I don't even think that sends the right message either.
Right, right. Yeah, we don't wanna parent our spouses in that way
Right.
either, but it is a tricky scenario, because it
Hmm.
sort of feels like you wade into these waters of, like, I mean, technically, neither one of those ways is wrong, like,
Right.
going back to, like, if y'all are sitting there watching TV for a while, eat my snack, set my trash on the end table. And then, like, likely what I assume happens is like you forget and you just kind of get up and go on about
Yes.
your stuff when it gets done. It's not like
It's
they
not
look over and go
intentional.
like, huh, I could throw that away, but I'm not going to. I'll just leave that for
Hmm.
Caitlin or Angie to pick up. Um, and similarly, like with the dishes, right? Like
Right.
it's kind of like especially in the like dishes in the sink scenario, like it really is just preference. Like I get it. It like at the end of the day, it's probably six one way, half a dozen the other on like
Yeah.
whether you load all at once or load as you go. So then it feels like you wade into this awkward water of like, well, I feel like my way is just better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, why would I wanna leave my trash on the end table all day when I could just throw it away? But that's,
Right.
like, not a message you wanna articulate to your kids, like,
Right.
"Well, my way is, like, better than
Superior or better.
superior," because, I mean, it's not, it's just, like, it's sort of like my preference,
Hmm.
ultimately, is what it comes down to. But then also I feel like, too, maybe sometimes it's hard because, like, whereas our husbands will, like, eventually, after a little bit of time, likely within the same day and within a reasonable time period within the same day, will, like, pick that stuff up and, like,
Yes.
throw it out, like, "Oh, I'm gonna do that, like, next time I really get up," or when I'm, like, totally done watching TV and I'm
Yeah.
moving on, like, I will collect my stuff and toss it out. Whereas, like, our kids are just, like, on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So, like, they don't necessarily have the, like, understanding that the difference between like dad and them is that, dad eventually like looks over and goes, "Oh, I should throw this away."
Yeah.
Whereas they
Caroline
just
doesn't
walk
come into
away.
the room and is like, man, I really messed up that playroom yesterday, but you know what? I'm not
Right.
changing it.
I'm good. I don't actually feel like cleaning it up. So therefore I shall not.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like this interesting scenario that like we end up kind of playing out, right? And so I was looking into, because I'm like, where does all of this start? And this is fascinating. And as a marketer, I feel like particularly connected to this, because so often, like in history and like throughout like societal behaviors, a lot of them come from marketing, the good and the
Right.
bad. Like,
Absolutely.
um, and I mean, if you want to get super technical, marketing is like, not even, it's not like it's the tail that wags the dog necessarily, but a
Hmm.
lot of times it's like capitalism.
Yeah.
If you want to hear me go on a rant, like stuffed crust pizza, for example, was specifically created and marketed so that dairy farmers could sell more cheese. So like things like that happen all the time, right? It's not.
Yes. Right, right, right.
So in the 80s and the 90s, there was this like campaign that when girls were taught that we could do anything, right? Like anything
Right.
you can do, I can do better.
Yep.
And that was the messaging. And again, like if you recall, this is like when women were starting to like work outside the home and all of those things. So in all of our infinite wisdom, we started telling young girls like you can do anything. But the messaging to boys did not change. The
No.
messaging to boys did not become, "Hey, girls can do anything. You should be doing more things."
Yeah.
And so we
Right.
so we encouraged women to and girls to go out and do anything, but we did not, like, encourage boys to
To, to support.
step it up and to support in there. So you know, what ended up happening is that boys started witnessing like mom goes out and works, but she's still the one who answers all the questions like what are we having for dinner? Where are we going at the, what time is practice? So where is
What's
my
happening this weekend?
yeah, like she still knew all the stuff and the things. And so then that also like demonstrates to our girls like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to model that behavior.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of like where, like contextually, and as like a little history lesson, where all of this like comes to fruition and how over time we've just like really perpetuated these sort of like gender
Norms.
roles,
Yeah.
norms that like our kids are like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. Like I will just model what my dad did, right? And
Hmm.
like I feel like you see this or you saw this a lot like back when young men would like apprentice with
Yeah.
like who, for their craft or their life skill or whatever it is, right? And the girls would also like stay home and like learn their cooking and their sewing and their stuff and their things.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting that we want to raise these like strong, capable girls, and that's the messaging that we give to them. But we don't raise our boys to be aware and cognizant of the mental load in the relationships and in their households.
Yeah. I think this also just like highlights how important and how significant modeled behavior is. Like
Mhm.
we all know, and we can talk in circles all day long. I can drive home any message to my children with words over and over and over again. But like even you and I are guilty of modeling behavior
100%.
that we do not want
Mhm. Mhm.
our girls and our boys to model. And so
Yeah.
like it just like I just think it's so important that we are putting actions where our words are because that's going to be more of the change and that
Mhm.
we're following up with like the words can be supportive but the actual modeling of the behavior I think is so much more important than excuse me telling the girls that you can do anything and telling the boys to support their wives.
Right. It's like that saying do as I say, not as I do,
Yes.
where we like tend, I feel like, especially I feel like that was said to me a lot, especially by older generations, like,
Uh-huh.
and like in the workplace and things like that, where it's like, no, 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 don't, don't model my behavior. Do like what I
What I'm
tell you,
telling.
not what I, don't copy me. Um, and so it's funny because it's like we're aware, we've got enough self-awareness
Yes.
to, say that, but not as much as we need to kind of, like, change it, and nothing is more humbling than when you see your child, like, copy a behavior that you're like, "Ooh, that is an ugly, ugly thing," like whether it's like a
Like,
tone of voice or a way that you
yeah,
respond
like
in certain situations, like
I didn't like that mirror look.
right. Ooh, yeah, it is, that is like a tough pill to swallow when you like also acknowledge like, that's my shit behavior you're modeling
Right,
there. Sorry about that, world."
right. So, what suggestions do we have to change this?
So here's one, and this I feel like I was kind of on the fence about including this because it feels so broad and vague, and it's that like husbands can learn and model anticipating, right? We talked about like kind of what comprises the mental load, and that anticipation of needs, both like physically and emotionally, is where we bear a lot of or where a lot of the mental load comes from.
Right,
And so like husbands learning and modeling that anticipation so that like our children can mimic them seems like, it was kind of like when you Google it, that's like the top suggestion basically. But it seemed so like, what is the word that I am looking for? I can't put my finger on it. But basically, like, if that was so easy, like, wouldn't this be a
Would-
non-issue?
right,
Like,
right. It
if
almost feels
my
like patronizing.
yeah, it was, and so I was kind of like I was on the fence about it, right? Because you could unpack that one thing. Like you could have a whole podcast probably about just how husbands can learn to model anticipation in and of itself. Like
Right.
that's a whole thing. So I was
That's
really on the fence about including it because I don't know, like like if I break that down, I think about, okay, how do I have that conversation with my husband? Like I've got to teach him or like introduce him to the idea and like help bring awareness. I don't want to say teach because that sounds sort of like I'm on a little like pedestal lecturing
right.
him.
Because it really is like this, like, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, and so to be like, "Hey, you need to be better at anticipating things." I feel like my husband would be like, "What the fuck does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
do I not do that? Like, do I not anticipate that, like, our kids are gonna need to go to bed and that they need food?"
Right,
You know
right.
what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely.
and so to
But it's
me,
the
you
fine tooth comb details.
yeah, to be like, "Okay, well, we need to okay, we've got baseball practice at 6 o'clock tonight, and we need to anticipate it. Like today is a perfect example. This is not how our evening went, but it very well could have easily gone this way. It was like the first warm day, it was like 72, which, 72 coming from the low 30s and 40s basically feels like 110.
Yeah, yeah.
So like
My kids were shooting water guns in our backyard
yeah. Oh,
at
yeah.
each
Like,
other.
yes, 100 yes, my kids were like, "It's basically summer." I don't see like, I am sweating through my clothes. They were outside for half an hour before I picked them up at daycare, and they were, like, beet red. They were a little bit sunburned, like, so you could, like part of what I think the mental load is in today's scenario is I look at that and I knew going to daycare, I was like, it's going to be the warmest part of the afternoon. They've been outside playing. They're going to be hot. Nora decided to wear pants and a long sleeve shirt, despite the fact that she was told, like, hey, it's going to be warm. You could probably at least put on a t-shirt. So they're going to be hot. They're going to be super thirsty. I should think about having water bottles in the car. I should at least anticipate that by the time we get home, everybody is a fucking mess, like
Yeah,
more than
that's a good
normal,
right, more than
because we
normal.
have like overheated and it's basically heat exhaustion at this point, or what
Right,
feels, to their little bodies as heat exhaustion. And gonna need to like hurry up and get dinner cooked because we've got to leave 30 minutes before practice starts because on the other side of town, like that's a lot of things to think through, and so, like,
right.
I'm, walking in the door going, "Okay, like, everybody get some water. Everybody take 10 minutes and like sit down, despite the fact that it's really nice out. Everybody go find like a cool place in the house, sit down, like let's just compose ourselves. And then like we can start, I'm going to hydrate you. I'm going to feed you some extra snacks,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things, right? It's that like
Because it's the long-term
anticipation.
goal of
Correct.
making
Of just
sure.
getting to baseball practice,
Yeah,
not in like full meltdown mode.
right.
Like, how do I set you up for
For
success for your
success.
hour and a half long baseball practice, which by the way is going to be outside and I thought would be warm. It wasn't. It was back to fall. Well, we'll
Right.
say spring. I mean, like early spring. So we ran through the gauntlet of seasons. We had winter, spring, and summer today. And so the goal is how do I get you through practice and like to bed without you just being a complete and total mess.
Yep.
Whereas like, you know,
Suck it up and deal with it.
suck it up and deal with it, or just thinking like, okay, we need to get dinner and we need to get to baseball. Like you could really
Right.
simplify it like that. But again, that anticipation of what could possibly be like on the first warm day of the season. So that's why, and that's like one small part of it, right? And so
Right.
how do you unpack that for your husband in a way that like, see, this is where it could be
A whole thing.
a whole thing, right? This is a whole episode. This is so I don't know. What's your take? Is this like a fair suggestion to include to say like, here's how you can work on this and change it?
I think it's both, but I think like it's a moving target because there is so much
Mhm.
and it's not a change that like they can start putting their shoes in a different place because it's helpful. Like this is like a lot
Right.
of change. And so I think, well, hi, Willa Bear. Oh, but yeah, so like I feel like it's something that our husbands need to be like cognizant of
Mhm.
and practicing always. But I don't think it's as simple as our husbands can learn and model anticipatory behavior for our sons to
Right.
mimic. Like the sentence doesn't do the ask justice.
Yes, that's a perfect way to phrase it. It's just so big that it seemed like an oversimplification, and it was
Yes.
like, well, shit, I mean, if we
Like
could do that, this would
we
be
wouldn't have a
solved.
podcast if we
Yeah,
could do
that's
that.
it. This is actually just like a few episode podcast and we're done. We've solved
Like,
the problem.
yeah.
Don't touch, please. Don't touch. Don't touch.
But yeah, so some of the other things that we can do is non-gendered chores.
I
So
love this. I
I
love this one.
this one just makes so much sense because we don't want to give our boys the once in a while chores while giving the girls the daily one, basically setting them up
Mhm,
for
mhm.
bearing the mental load because
Right.
every once in a while tasks,
Like mowing the yard
mowing the yard,
or
raking leaves,
cleaning up
all of,
dog poop, like
yeah,
things that like you only have to do. It's not a daily thing.
right. It
Maybe
doesn't
the dog
keep,
poop should be.
I don't know,
Not at our house.
not at our house.
We've got enough room. We just walk around some of it.
But yeah, it's like this behavior that like what we're teaching them then is that boys have the luxury of turning off
Yeah.
and the girls don't because theirs are daily and the boys are weekly every couple of days.
I feel like my husband fell asleep if she's just like wandering down here because I've not heard him like call her.
112%. Eric is
Is
snoozing
Dad
away.
asleep? No. He's not? Can you go find him and see? Go see if Dad's asleep. Yeah, is he playing hide and seek? Go see if his eyes are hiding. If they're closed, Willa, look at me. Willa, if Dad's eyes are closed, go peekaboo. Okay? Can you go do that? Nope, nope. You what? You want a banana?
Yeah.
We don't have any bananas. Can I give you? Didn't you already brush your teeth with Dad? Why? I'm gonna hold on. Pause. I'm
Yeah,
gonna run her back
you're
upstairs.
good.
What? Can you say bye bye to Angie?
Bye bye, Willa.
Okay, let's take this book. Everybody went to sleep. He's not asleep. There was just a jailbreak.
Oh my God.
So
Impressive
he thought
jailbreak.
he thought she was asleep or like in her room, and she's not. Can you hear
Uh,
her screaming in the background?
I can. Well, I did.
Okay.
I
Well,
can't hear her anymore.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We need like a sound bite to be like, thank you for your patience while we parent
Like
our
short
children.
intermission. I'm gonna find that. I'll find some like intermission music and just be like,
Right.
do 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 do.
Seriously.
And
But yeah,
then
so what we were saying is that when we do give the boys the once in a while chores, we're essentially giving them permission to turn off their mental load, while girls doing
mhm,
daily chores have to constantly be turned on and anticipating in a
yeah,
more frequent way than the boys.
yes. I so this is something that I like I think back to my childhood, and so my mom ran like a home daycare,
Hmm.
and every single night it was like me and my brother's responsibilities to do the dishes and empty the dishwasher and sweep the floors, right? Because like the next morning we would have like basically clean up
Right.
so that like the kids were coming into a clean house the next morning. And my brother and I alternated. So like growing up, I feel like I don't think it was a conscious decision by my parents at all to be like we're going to split these like girl chores between the two of them.
Right.
It was like, we are outsourcing our labor. All of these things have to get done, and we deserve to sit down on the couch
Uh-huh.
and watch TV while you guys take 20 minutes after dinner to like sweep the floors and get like the kitchen presentable again.
Yes.
I have a friend who she has she's my neighbor and she has two young boys. And she calls them husband lessons. And
Husband.
so whenever she like finds something in her house that is like a toilet seat is left up or like you made a mess on the counter and you didn't like clean it up or something like that,
Uh-huh.
um she will like call her boys over and she's like, "Okay, husband lesson time." And she's like,
Oh my
"Someday
gosh.
when you are living with a wife, here's what she will expect from you." And then she makes them like do the thing and she calls them
Right.
husband
I
lessons,
love that she
which
has like
I
a little
think
name for it too.
which I think is beautiful to be like, "Hey, I'm just going to let you know this shit's not going to fly like
Yeah,
when you are living
exactly.
with
Exactly.
as a partner in the future. They will expect you to do basic things like X, Y, and Z."
Yes, absolutely. We're actually working on a chore chart, like a more formalized chore system in our house.
Mm.
Because Jesse and I talked about doing allowances and what that looks like. And yeah, it's just like interesting to think about like because what our model is less because we have three big girls, like we don't have
Yeah.
like Warren um is not doing
Yeah, he's not
chores.
gonna.
We're like modeling small things, like he's responsible for taking his plate from
Yes. Yeah.
the table to the sink.
Yes.
And then he helps us, I use in quotation marks, put away his laundry, like
Right.
just like kind of modeling that behavior. So like this is something that you eventually are going to have to do
Right, right.
yourself.
They're more like life skills at this point. Like, they're
Yes,
basic
that's a
things that, like,
great way.
I need you to you
Yeah.
should be able to put away your laundry.
And so what we're like trying to figure out right now is less defining like boy and girl chores, but more
Right.
so like what should be expected of you as just like a member of our family?
Yes. Yep,
And then
yep.
what is
Above and beyond,
additional?
like, that I'm
Yeah,
willing to pay you for.
right.
Yes.
And so like Jess and I were saying that like we don't get paid for being parents.
Parents,
So
yes.
like we don't want our kids to be paid
Right.
for
Feeding the dog.
right. But
Like,
like if you like I need you to also not just do the paid chores and
right,
completely forget. And so
right.
we're narrowing down the system. But like that's how like going into this, like that's how like we think of chores now. It's not necessarily this like gendered landscape. It's more what are just I'm a member of this family chores and what are like extra chores that are really, really helpful. But
Yes.
and those feel like those once in a while chores.
Yes. It's so funny that you say this because I'm, like, just thinking about this. So, that's another one of the suggestions that I came across pretty frequently was, like, to pay both your God damn it, my cats.
Oh, are they hungry?
Yeah, it's 30 minutes past Beatus cat's feeding, so he's knocking
Oh,
all the cups that are probably full from
we little
dinner
Beatus
on.
cat.
Yeah. So paying both genders equally, which BT dubs, what parents are like, "I'm gonna pay my daughters
Right.
I'm gonna pay my daughter $2 to clean the bathroom, but I'll pay my son 5 or 4."
I
Like,
wonder.
that can't be a thing.
So no, what I think, I'm hoping that the message here is that because the daily chores are daily and take less
Oh,
time,
so
that
it's like, "Oh,
the
I'll give you a
girls can
dollar."
earn
Yeah.
$1 for doing the dishes and $1 for doing the sweeping, but then the boys get paid $5 for mowing the lawn.
Yes, that that makes a
I
lot more
think that's probably the
That's gotta
message
be
here.
it. That has to be it because I was like, "What who
You're like,
who pa who intentionally creates the gender wage gap for their kids
they're
in
like,
their
let me tell
household?"
you about this glass ceiling, honey.
Right. I'm just gonna teach you the cruel ways of the world now.
You get
So,
76 cents for every
75
dollar your
cents to the
brother makes.
dollar. It's how it works in the world, it's how it works in his house.
Oh my gosh.
No, okay. But back to, like, this, like, chore chart because we've had this exact conversation before. And
Mhm.
again, I think this was kind of similar to how, like, we grew up. There are basic things that, like, we were required like, keeping our rooms clean was a thing that we had to do. But then, like, every Saturday morning, my mom required that everything got dusted and floors
Mhm.
got swept and vacuumed.
Yeah.
Like,
Ours was
top
Sunday afternoon after church.
oh,
We
okay,
couldn't
yes.
do anything.
Yes, ours was Saturday mornings. We had to listen to Celine Dion or Reba McEntire,
Oh.
and you could not do anything with your friends. You could not even take phone calls from
Oh
your
yeah.
friends to do anything until your chores were done.
Yeah.
And you were only I mean, in the grand scheme of things, like, I think it really could not have taken maybe half an hour if you were being, like,
Oh
real
right.
slow
Yeah.
about it. Um and it was
It
like,
felt
I
like an
would just
eternity
it did.
as a 13-year-old. As a
Yes.
13-year-old, I was
Yes,
like,
and you just had to
"What?"
alternate. You were only responsible for one thing, like, your room needed to be tidied up, and then you had to dust or vacuum, like, it
Yeah.
wasn't so anyway, but we have had this, like, same conversation, and as I have been thinking about, like, this, like, kind of 2 months where Eric's gonna be gone pretty significantly, and I've thought about this before in the context of, like, there are just some additional things that, like, I would love to just pay a housekeeper to do,
Right.
but alas, my monthly budget does not support
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah, you
Um,
have a child labor budget.
I do exactly. I have a child labor budget, and unfortunately, the only children that I am legally allowed to labor are my own.
Are your own. Right.
So, I shouldn't say unfortunately. Realistically, they're the
Really.
only ones I can force to work inside of my home, or I would. Um, anyway, I feel like I'm gonna have to heavily edit that sentence to make me not sound like a horrible person, but please know that I
No, I know
you know what
exactly
I'm
what
saying.
you
You know what
meant.
I'm
Yeah, I do.
saying. So here, like, here are kind of the basic things. And like we've identified some of a lot of them are like, these are the daily things that we have to do. The dishwasher has to get emptied and loaded multiple times a day. The cat litter has to get scooped. Like you've got
Yeah,
to do these things. I am going to like start teaching the kids to like, hey, you are responsible for getting like your laundry into like the washer and getting it started, like some of these things that like they can start doing. But then there's stuff where it's like, okay, like cleaning the hall bathroom, for example. Like,
bathrooms are a
I mean,
big pay job at
God,
our house.
yes, I will pay you $10, which seems
That's You pay
ridiculously
well. I'll come
overpriced.
clean your bathroom for $10.
Hired.
However, your expectations of my work have to be the same as Nora's.
So you're gonna lay on the floor in the bathroom and cry and,
And
like, scream for 3 hours, and then, like she
yeah,
really does enjoy cleaning the mirrors, so that is her, like, one thing that she anyway,
anyway,
um, low expectations is the point there. But that's not like, the way that I have been thinking that I am going to do it and just in general, like, so this will be kind of the start because I'm going to need the extra set of hands anyway. But then I feel like it's something that we can like maintain is like, here are the things that are like beyond and like just kind of having a list and saying like, this is the going rate for those things. Like
yeah,
cleaning the bathroom, here's everything that it entails. And like for all of when all of these things are done, like you get $3 or whatever it is.
right.
Um, going outside and picking up sticks before dad mows, like, and it's things like you can look at and you can decide which ones you do. I don't care.
Yes,
I'm not going to assign them,
right.
but I'm just going to say, like, here's the list of stuff and things that has to get done that I am willing to pay for. They will all
Yep.
get done regardless, but if you want to earn some cash, like,
Yes.
here's an easy way to do it, and these are sort of the above and beyond things. Um, Unfortunately, if nobody chooses to do them, it's not like I feel better paying myself the total of $10 or
Right.
whatever
Well,
for
what we
those.
talk about with those extra chores, the frame or lens that we use with our kids is like somebody's going to have to do it. And if it's going to be mom and dad, that means less mom and dad time, like
Mhm, mhm.
playing or doing things, going
Right,
places.
right.
And I said, that's fine. Like we will always make time for
Yeah.
our family. But at the end of the day, the sticks are still going to need to be picked up before he mows. And
Yep.
so you can do that while I'm finishing up with this other task that a child cannot complete.
Right, right.
And then we can save time. And so I try to make it this like cooperative,
Yes. Yeah.
like them understanding both the consequences of them
Right.
choosing to do that. Consequences is too hard of a word, but
But yeah, like the effect, it's
the
cause and
effect is a
effect.
better,
Like,
yeah, cause and
if
effect.
you choose not to do this and you just wanna sit and watch your Saturday cartoons for another 30 minutes, then that's fine, but I have to do this other thing, which is going to take me maybe a little bit longer than 30 minutes. And then I'm going to have to do the thing that was
The
going to take
sticks.
you. Yeah, I'm going to have to go do the sticks, which is going to take me like another 15 minutes if I'm uninterrupted. But because you will probably interrupt me 15 times in the 15 minutes
Yes.
it takes me to do this, it will probably take me 45 minutes. So now our whole morning is gone. So
Right.
now when we could have maybe had like a few hours to go to the zoo or the park, we're going to have maybe an hour or two. And that means that like also our choices of what we can go
Yeah.
do are drastically different than like, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's I think it's a really smart way to discuss it. And it feels like that feels like a conversation that is very like easy to have, right? Like
Right.
you can start introducing and like trying to help them understand this right away. It doesn't,
Yeah.
like it doesn't
It's not
seem
too
like
big of a
something.
concept.
It's not, and it's not something that I feel like is a hard buy-in either
Right.
from your partners to be like, "Hey, the allowance thing, I know I see so many different articles. It's like mind-boggling how anybody manages to raise a kid and make a decision.
I know.
But so that, might take a little bit of finessing, but the concept of like, "Hey, here's what it takes to like make this household functional.
Mhm.
We can either spend all day letting me do this stuff or mom and dad do this stuff, or you could pitch in, earn a little bit of cash for it, and like, let's be on our way and go do
Yeah.
something fun."
Yeah. Well,
Dealer's choice.
I'll share my chore chart with you later with what I'm like coming up with.
Yeah,
If you
I'm
have
super interested because I've sort of been like making a list of things that I'm like, I just wish like I had a little bit more help with these things,
uh-huh.
and they're not. I mean, they're not going to have a choice when Eric's not here. Other people will be helping me
Right, right.
because I don't think my babysitter accepts payment for just coming to my house and not actually watching my kids, but just doing kid
Yeah.
related upkeep.
Yeah, I
But
don't
if
think
she
they'll
does,
apply.
I might pay her for it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
So,
no.
like, kind of tangent to this, and this is something else that I think is really smart, that it was like this light bulb moment that I didn't even consider, is teaching the planetary planning and the anticipating and the monitoring portion of their responsibilities. So, like, Nora's responsible for feeding the cats and the dog every morning and every evening. And so instead of just saying, like, you're responsible for feeding them and reminding her at, 7 o'clock or whatever to be like, hey, you need
Mhm.
to feed the dog his dinner. Also saying, when Gunner's food is getting low, it's your job to make sure you write it on the list. So, like, we know, I mean, obviously, like, I think we would be keeping kind of an eye on it,
Of
but,
course.
and like, but teaching that like whole concept
Yeah.
thing, or
The
even
4
like,
steps of mental load.
correct. Like, you need to anticipate, you need to plan, you need to do all of these things. And likewise, I've thought about this with laundry as well, where like, um, I have tried and it has been very unsuccessful where I've been like, if you are getting low on clothes, it is your job to tell me when you have, and I tried to like put numbers to it. I was like, if you have only 2 pairs of pants left in your drawer, I need you to say, Mom, I only have 2 pairs of pants left in my drawer. Otherwise, I'm going to assume you have enough laundry to get you to the next laundry day.
Yeah.
That has like never worked out. And inevitably, I'm like Febrezing a pair of pants that I have deemed not too smelly from a kid's clothes hamper. Which like a 9-year-old boy, like we're really starting to teeter on the like
Yeah,
this is
the
not gonna be
level.
an option for very much longer. Like, come this summer, I think we will have passed the ability to do
Yes, you
this.
will. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but thinking about and going like, it's not just taking your hamper and like setting it by the laundry room so that I know, or you taking it and like putting it in, like, need I remind you, you don't actually put all of your dirty clothes in your hamper. So I need you to like survey your room and collect
Mhm.
all of the things. Otherwise, we're only going to wash one or two pairs of pants and some shirts and like a pair of underwear, because the rest of it
Right.
is like, so thinking about and going like, okay, doing the laundry means I have to look around and see what I've missed, and I need to separate the towels out, and like all of the steps to it, versus just teaching them like, you do laundry by putting what's in your hamper into
Right.
here. Like
Right.
you need to be able to determine how many days until you need your laundry.
Well, it's so this concept is like the perfect example was the TikTok that I sent you
Mhm.
earlier this week, where she was like, it was, my husband's a great partner. Like, he is super involved and whatnot. And it's his responsibility to bathe the kids because that's just how they work.
She was nursing, yeah. That's
Because she
where
was
it started,
nursing.
yeah. She was like, I we started this when I was nursing, and so while I nursed at night, he was
He
responsible
was
for
bathing
giving
the
the older
kids. Yeah.
ones
But
their baths.
she was still feeling resentful, not because he wasn't bathing the kids, he was bathing the kids, but because after he bathed the kids, there was still wet towels on the floor and
Mhm.
there were bath toys all over the bath and there were,
Soap was missing, and
yeah.
yeah,
So
she
like
couldn't, like,
he
actually just
was,
get in and take a shower.
yeah. So like while he took a piece, really
Yep.
what she was wanted and needed in that moment was taking the whole piece.
Mhm.
And so, like, I just was just like, she just articulated it in a way that I
Yeah.
had always struggled with.
Yes, I need you to finish it
Yes,
all the way through. I need every step completed in order for me to feel like you have truly taken over this task.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yep, we had this conversation, so we were talking about, dinners and our meal planning, and we came up with this system not too long ago where we, like, split the week basically,
mhm.
and what it where that originated is because, Eric and I are both, like, people manager people, and we have difficulty, like, basically, neither one of us likes to just sit back and let the other one be the manager of the thing. So he has like a very different meal planning and prepping process than I do. And so finally we were like, you know what? We're just going to split this shit down the middle.
Makes sense.
And that was fine. And so he had like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I had Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we agreed that Sundays would be like our joint like thing.
Yeah.
Or we would take turns or whatever it was. Weekends are pretty like fluid. Um, and so we kind of got into this argument over like dinners because Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we didn't have anything planned. And then Thursday, he did plan. And then I was like, but I already have my things. And I was like, what
Right.
are we doing? Like, and I was frustrated. And so like we got it, like, we kind of like we're not very happy with each other. And finally, like we talked it through, and I used this example. I was like, here's why I was really frustrated. I handled it like shitty on my end because I like didn't say that I was frustrated Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, even though I
Right.
was. So then on Thursday, when really it was, his point was like, you could have just been like, oh my gosh, now we basically have the next 7 days. He was like, instead, you were like, what the fuck? Like,
Right.
take care, like I handled it poorly 100%. And I was like, you are right. What I wasn't saying is that I was like annoyed as shit about Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And so I did not
And
think it
so I
was
couldn't
helpful.
appreciate
And so I
Thursday.
could not appreciate, yeah. So that was on me for not like communicating better. Anyway, so we had this conversation and I was like, listen, in the past you've said that like I feel micromanagey, and that like I can see that because again, we both like have a way we like things done.
Right.
It was like, so I was trying to like give you space to like find your own way and not be a jerk to you about it and like make you feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like stressing me out. It was making my nights more difficult. Um, because those are the nights that like we have dance and we have swim, and those are the things I'm responsible for. So I used this like scenario and I was like, even the week before you got dinner stuff ready and or you like picked out the protein and then asked me what I
What?
wanted. I said I didn't know because I didn't. And in my
Right.
head, I was like,
That's on you.
that's on you. Like, you're the boss. Like, my requirements are protein and vegetables. Like, that's what I would like with my dinner. I am flexible outside of those two things. And so, and like when I had like on Monday afternoon, I had texted and was like, "Hey, what's for dinner?" And he was like, "Don't know, you never got back to me." And I didn't say anything about that. So like by the time we had this argument, like this had been like festering for a little while. So I handled it very poorly. Um, but when we were like when we were talking it out, I was like, the thing is, I want you, like, we split this up so that it was less for me to deal with to do all 7 days. But then I need you to take it from beginning to end. I do not want you to be like, well, you didn't tell me what you wanted me to make with the
Yeah.
hamburger, or you didn't tell me how you wanted the chicken cooked, or what vegetables you wanted with it. I was like, start to finish, it needs to be yours. Otherwise, it's not really like
Off of the brain.
alleviating. Yeah, it's not off my brain. Then I still have to like put on my list, get back
Because you're
to.
still
Yeah,
anticipating and monitoring.
correct, correct. And like as soon as I said that, where I was like, where I kind of like gave that example where I was like, so do you see why like I still find it frustrating because it's not like start to finish? The light bulb went off, I feel like, for him too, where he was like, oh, I can get why that still annoys you. And yes, I could appreciate that. So I felt like it was a really good, um, ultimately, it was like a good conversation around that. But
Yeah.
that was like a huge, like, aha moment, I think, for the both of us to be like, start to finish. If it's not start to finish, then like, you haven't really taken it off.
Lighten any load.
Yeah, you really
Right.
haven't.
And so to provide our children with, like, teach our children those skills on what is encompassing start to
Mhm.
finishing a task, I think is going to set them up for success in the future with their relationships, whether they're a girl or a boy and they
Right.
marry a girl or a boy, like they will know that when they assume responsibility of a task, it is from start to
Start
finish.
to finish. Right. Right. And I think like we forget too that you have to teach kids, like you do have to teach all of those steps. Like
Hmm.
my kids find cleaning their rooms like very overwhelming. And it's funny because like Eric will say the same thing. He's like, when you say, I need help cleaning the kitchen, I walk in and it's this giant mess. And I'm just like, there's so much here,
Yeah.
which I can appreciate. I am somebody who like looks at a big thing and I like can immediately be like, bang, 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 bang. Like here
Yeah.
are
Like you
all
can
like,
identify
yeah,
the
I can
things.
like chunk this out and like it is not an issue for me to work through it. And so I think we forget sometimes when we're teaching our kids to do these things that like it's the same way. Like when my kids walk in and they're like, oh my God, I have to clean my room. I'm like, okay, let's just start by picking up all of your clothes. Don't worry about like cleaning the whole room. Let's just
Yeah.
like find all of our clothes. Okay, now we're going to put all of our books back on our shelf. Now we're going to pick up the toys. And I was like, see, now we've done only three things, but our room is clean. And
Right.
like we can move on with our lives now.
Yeah. It's breaking up into what seem to be more achievable chunks
Mhm, mhm,
than the big picture.
mhm.
And
So
so
I think
just explaining and
yeah,
teaching them how to identify those out.
yeah. And then I think the hard this is where like I struggle and I feel like sometimes I default to being like pretty lenient and saying like, we'll be like, "Hey, you can't have your Switch or your tablet until this thing is done." But then like inevitably I get to the point where I'm so overwhelmed and I'm like, I am just tired of
Yeah,
this and I need a mental break. So then I just like, and this is bad. I know it's not like you're supposed to be consistent, blah, 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 blah. But
right,
like, and I'm like, whatever, I don't care. Fuck it. Like, go ahead,
right,
like play on your Switch for a little bit and we'll get back to folding your clothes later. I think like sticking to and like enforcing it is something that is really difficult because I feel like a lot of the like bad behaviors are really like coping mechanisms on my end to be like,
right.
I am just tired of like thinking about all of this and I need some time to either just like work in peace or
Yeah,
have you like not follow me around and ask a million questions. So like fine, eat your snacks and play on your tablets.
yeah. So this was like a recent like revelation that me and Jesse had was we were trying like we couldn't figure out or put our finger on what was bothering us about each other's parenting because we really do at our
Mm.
core have the same like
Yeah, like philosophy.
values and philosophies, but like we couldn't really like neither of us could figure out why it was different and why it was an issue until we finally figured it out. And what it is that Jesse is the harder disciplinarian and less lenient, but he's not consistent. So some
Mm,
days not doing the dishes is fine because he's overwhelmed at work and doesn't want to deal with it. But then other days he's
mhm.
like, why didn't you do the dishes? This is your responsibility. Where I am the complete opposite. I am unwilling to not be consistent. So I won't agree. I don't enforce anything that I know that I can
Mm.
enforce every single time. So therefore, I become this soft and just significantly more
Yeah, the consequences, like, aren't as harsh or, like, the escalation isn't as harsh,
right,
but it's so you come across as, like, softer,
right.
but
But it's
it's like
because I value consistency.
right, but it is something
So,
that you're like, "Okay, well, I can't commit to being like, no TV for the whole evening or the whole
right,
day tomorrow because you failed to do X, Y, or Z." Um because that feels like punishment for me the next
right.
day,
And so, like, Jess and I,
but what I can say is like, "Hey, you have lost story time tonight, or you have lost snuggle time
yeah,
before bedtime, because, you didn't follow through or, you lose
right.
whatever,
So, like,
something
we
small."
had this great conversation of like him really valuing like the consequences of actions, and
Mm,
I'm really valuing clear expectations and why those
mm,
two just weren't weaving together the way that they did. And so I would say we are much better at it now because it was identified. Um, and it just like, it was one of those moments where we're both just like, ah, fuck. Like,
yeah.
that's what it is. That's what it
That's
is
so fu
that
I feel like
it's
that is very similar. I'm gonna, like, ask Eric about it because I feel like that is 100% like what maybe not, like, verbatim how
right,
it kind of plays out, but I think, like, there's just, like, these differences, like, I feel like a lot of times he is, like, simply looking like he is looking for compliance in like I gave you instructions and I told you how to do it and I want to see you do it my way. And so like and then like similarly the consequences like can vary
right.
depending on like what level of irritation we're at kind of going into the
Yep,
interaction. Whereas like I am again, like kind of on the softer side where I'm like, I don't necessarily care how it gets done. I would just like you to take responsibility for what I have told you and show me that you can like basically that you can like look around and see that you are being asked to contribute. And so like I want to see you motivated as a person
Right.
to just like hold up, like contribute what you want to in the way that you feel capable of doing it.
Right.
Like it doesn't have to be like done a specific way for me.
Hmm.
I just want to see you get it done of your own free will.
Right. Right.
And then I'll go in and like correct and be like, okay,
So it's
when I
like,
said load the dishwasher, I didn't mean put like only 4 things in there. I meant like, you know, look at what's in the sink and like fit as much as you can. And then like,
right. Yeah, it's like we had the same philosophy, but like we had like counterintuitive executions of the
yeah,
same philosophy. And
yeah,
so um, I think that making sure that you're teaching your children those concepts because we don't want
mm,
to add to our mental load. Because like the point is like when we have clear expectations and consequences, like that's obviously scientifically proven like a great way to parent.
yes, yes.
But are we adding then to our mental load because we are the ones who are constantly like paying attention to if it's being done, monitoring the implementation of things, um,
Managing the emotional regulation because then like
managing,
there's tension and this is the way it ends up in our house. Like when you've got those counterintuitive execution styles, inevitably, like
right,
you end up like creating tension. And so then you're constantly like monitoring, like, okay, well, how are you going to feel when I point this out? And like,
right,
you know, as the person who anticipates and then monitors the progress, we also get the shit end of the deal because then I feel like that's where it seems like we're nagging is
yep,
because we're like, well, it's my job to monitor the implementation of this and as such, I have to point out when it is not
not
being implemented, which sometimes is often depending on what we're doing,
right,
which leaves you feeling like I am just constantly telling you, you're doing it wrong again, you're doing it wrong again, you're doing it wrong again.
yeah, absolutely.
Very interesting.
I know.
I feel like the second half of the like this list actually created a lot of really great conversation. I feel like I've got a lot of good takeaways
Yeah,
from how
for
I'm gonna do
sure.
this. My kids are 100% getting like an optional chore chart.
Yeah.
But I'm curious. I'm gonna kind of explain like what you and Jesse uncovered. And I feel like that's going to be a good conversation between Eric and I in terms of like, because it's hard too to have that conversation. You don't want to feel like you're constantly like pointing out somebody's flaws and the
Right.
things that like annoy you about them because I feel like in like a solid partnership we accept it's like that Bluey episode where they like teach the girls that like you take the good with the bad, you
Yeah.
know? And we all like to some extent do that in our relationships and accept that, but then it's like those non-negotiables where it's like how
Yes.
do we what are the things that are going to be non-negotiable for us and then how do we like communicate around those
Mm-hmm.
versus henpecking each other to death because that we are not going to last if we
Yeah.
do that.
No, that is not great relationship advice.
we we will be we'll be living in separate households very
Yeah.
quickly if you tell me every single thing you don't like about me because I'm sure that list is
Extensive.
extensive. So,
But yeah, it was just a really healthy conversation with
yeah.
like here is your flaw in this execution and here is my flaw in this execution. So like how can we bring them closer together?
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah. I feel like that's great. So, changing and trying to teach our kids kind of wrap this all up and to recap, changing the perception of what boys and girls learn from their mothers carrying the mental load and how you start to kind of break that generational cycle. Um, I feel like we're getting husbands learning and modeling anticipation behaviors. I feel like we're not gonna put that on the list as like an official thing because
Yeah,
we agree that's the ask
that's a
is
whole
too
thing.
big for this statement there.
Yes.
So the very like practical things that you can be doing are non-gendered chores, not giving your boys the once in a while chores while you're giving your girls the daily ones. And as Angie very astutely pointed out, that doesn't mean creating, when we say pay them equally, it doesn't mean creating a gender wage gap in your household,
In your household.
but not valuing like the daily chores that you're assigning to girls as lesser, because they take less time, saying like, oh, that's $1 for doing the sweeping while your brother gets $5 for mowing the lawn. So kind of paying equally and I think a better way to phrase that instead of paying equally is valuing the work equally
Yes.
and paying accordingly. And then teaching your kids the process of anticipating, decisioning, implementing, and monitoring the things that they are responsible for so that they learn that start to finish process. I feel like that all seems like very shockingly actionable.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like those feel like action items, and I love a good action item.
So report back next time. How does this go? Because I am fascinated by this. I think my biggest hurdle is actually going to be finding a chore that Nora will do.
Yeah, it's a struggle bus at our house with Caroline. She's really good at cleaning windows. However, we have to
Again, their essence was split because that is also Nora's favorite
yeah,
chore.
no,
I
absolutely.
will clean the shit out of some windows and mirrors.
But we have to ration the Windex. Otherwise, girlfriend will literally use a whole bottle.
Oh my gosh, you need to I don't even use Windex. I um bought you can get it on Amazon. It's called the Enviro Cloth and it's like a 2-pack. It is like this cloth that you get wet with just water and you like wipe it over your surfaces and then it has like another like microfiber cloth that like a tight weave
Ah,
one that you just go over and you dry it and it is better than Windex.
okay.
It leaves 0 streaks, and then you do not have, because my mom has the same complaint at her house. She will, like, let Nora wash windows, and she's like, "And then I have to buy the whole bottle of Windex again." So I avoid that, and I just use those cloths, and it's perfect. But
Well,
yes, currently, that is the only chore that does not
yeah, same.
get, a very emotional
Yeah.
reaction.
I mean, it's like deep in their bones reaction. It's not like the
It's very
surface.
visceral.
Yeah, visceral is the word I was searching for.
So
Like
visceral.
it's not just like oh man, I don't want to do that. It's like
I
they
have
go
lost
limp.
my shit and I am
Yeah,
like throwing books across the room
yeah, yeah,
because you ask me to fold my clothes
yeah.
or to pick up the toys. My favorite thing is like the second I ask her to pick up toys, be like, "Hey, we're going to tidy this room." I tried like this concept where like we've got a Roomba, so like in theory, we have a little robot who will clean our floors every single day for us and that would
Yeah.
be a huge help. So I tried this concept where I was like, okay, we're just gonna like your chore at night is to pick up the all the little things that like the Roomba can get stuck on and then it like stops and doesn't do its job. And that like obviously was like the most malicious ask I could have made of her. And so then because I asked her to pick them up and put them away, and that was too much. So then I was like, great, here is this bin. All I need you to do is go around and put all the things in this bin, and then we will each be responsible for taking our things out of the bin a week or at the end of the day,
Right.
right? So I felt like, okay, I eliminated the put it away step. Literally all you have to do is like scoop it in, and it's not, I mean, it's not like a ton of stuff, and
Right.
that's still
And they're way closer to the ground than we are.
yes, and it's still like still resulted in the same action. So I have yet to find a thing that she is willing to
All right. Well, if you find something, let me know.
do. Because
And I will also, it's,
likewise,
yeah,
likewise,
no, it's
because
like,
since they're
it's market
carbon
research.
copies, we can A/B test our daughters. "Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. You can take a list we will make a list of chores, and you can give half to Caroline and see which ones she responds positively to, and I will do the same with Nora, and then we will just know."
And then we will develop the chore
And then
chart
we will be like,
accordingly.
"Great. Caroline responded positively to these 2 and Nora to these 3 or 2 or 1, most likely."
Uh-huh. And so
And so
we know.
therefore, these are their grouping of chores because we
Yes,
know
because we know.
they've copy and pasted each other. God, those girls. I love them. We love them. Anyway, this was great, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right. Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.